A Course on the Glorious Liberty of the Sons of God. The Pathway to Dominion. Daniel Kiflemariam. Session 10. The Danger of Self-Deprivation. The Dangers of Self-Deprivation and Abstinence from Physical Enjoyment. Self-deprivation, particularly when it involves abstaining from legitimate bodily, physical, and material pleasures, is a widely spread danger that often ruins lives and hinders believers from experiencing the fullness of life that God intended. When individuals deprive themselves of these pleasures, believing that doing so somehow enhances their spirituality, they fail to live in alignment with their true identity and calling as sons of God. This form of deprivation not only stifles their joy, but leads to a life filled with frustration, unhappiness, and unfulfilled potential. The trap of false consecration. Many believers fall into the trap of thinking that desiring physical and material pleasure is incompatible with holiness. This false belief puts them in bondage, as they strive to suppress their legitimate desires in order to maintain an unrealistic standard of holiness. The result of this mindset is often a life characterized by fear, guilt, and a lack of freedom to fully embrace the gifts God has given, including physical pleasures and material blessings. The belief that holiness requires constant self-deprivation distorts a believer's view of life and causes them to withhold from enjoying the simple, God-given pleasures that can bring fulfillment. As a result, they may become fear-stricken, unwilling to enjoy life, or engage meaningfully in any venture that requires initiative or responsibility. This fear of losing holiness and spiritual standing prevents them from taking the necessary steps to flourish in the world and fully participate in the beauty and joy of creation. Fear of losing holiness. These believers often live with the erroneous belief that their enjoyment of the physical world will disqualify them from living in the fullness of their sonship. They may feel like their spiritual identity is compromised every time they enjoy a legitimate bodily or physical pleasure, such as eating, drinking, or celebrating life's milestones. This leads them to an emotional and mental state where they are fearful of allowing themselves to enjoy real life, opting instead for a future joy that has yet to materialize and which they cannot experience in the here and now. Many live with the hope that after death, they will be in a better place, imagining that only then will they truly experience the fullness of life. However, this mindset robs them of the joy and fulfillment that God intended for them to experience in this present world. It keeps them trapped in spiritual escapism, focused on the afterlife rather than engaging with the world around them and embracing their true identity as sons of God on the earth. The spirit of false consecration. The spirit of false consecration is a prevalent force that many believers still face today. This spirit pushes them to believe that true spirituality is found in extreme self-denial, especially when it comes to the physical and material world. Many cannot imagine that Jesus, the Son of God, freely enjoyed wine, food, and physical pleasures during his time on earth. His participation in these activities is often overlooked or misunderstood by believers who are still heavily influenced by the religious mindset that prioritizes abstinence and self-deprivation as indicators of godliness. The danger lies in the fact that many believers continue to adopt the lifestyle of John the Baptist, a prophet who practiced asceticism and extreme self-denial, mistakenly equating holiness with renouncing earthly pleasures. This mindset continues to bind many believers in religious bondage, making them fearful to experience the fullness of life that God has created for them. Legitimate desires are not carnal. It is important to clarify that desiring and enjoying legitimate bodily, physical, and material pleasures does not make a person carnal or egoistic. The true issue lies in how one identifies themselves. The carnal mind is one that finds its identity in physical experiences and earthly achievements. It makes the body, material possessions, or worldly successes the basis of one's identity. However, this is not the way of the sons of God. When a believer receives Christ and becomes a new creation, they are given a new identity that is not bound by the limitations of the physical realm or the deceitful desires of the flesh. A born-again child of God has been freed from this false identity. They are no longer constrained by the belief that they are defined by their physical body or earthly possessions. In Christ, they are liberated to enjoy all that God has made, fearlessly and without guilt. Their identity is rooted in the truth of who they are in Christ, and they are free to live in the glorious liberty of sonship, a life that includes fully embracing and enjoying both spiritual and physical blessings. The liberation of sonship. The key to living in this liberty is recognizing that self-deprivation for the sake of holiness is not God's will for His children. Christ's redemptive work on the cross has already freed believers from the condemnation of sin and the fear of separation from God. This freedom extends to enjoying all the pleasures that God has created for man to enjoy. Whether it's eating a meal, enjoying the beauty of nature, or experiencing earthly success, these are gifts from God to be enjoyed by His children. When believers understand this, they are able to live boldly and confidently in the freedom of their new identity as sons of God, knowing that their worth is not found in denying themselves legitimate pleasures, but in embracing who they are in Christ. The more they live in this understanding, the more they experience the joy, peace, and fulfillment that God has designed for them. The final truth. It is important to note that being carnal is not about enjoying the good things God has made, but about seeking to find identity in those things. Carnality is when a person is defined by their physical experiences or earthly possessions rather than by their identity in Christ. Sonship, on the other hand, is about living freely and joyfully in the fullness of God's provision, both spiritually and materially, without being bound by fear or guilt. Believers must understand that the gospel of grace does not require self-deprivation. Instead, it frees them to live freely as sons of God with no condemnation, knowing that their identity is rooted in the perfect work of Christ. By embracing this truth, they can live a victorious and joyful life on the earth, fully engaged in all that God has made available to them. The greatest danger of self-deprivation is that it prevents believers from experiencing the fullness of life that God has intended for them. As sons of God, they are called to live freely, embracing both their spiritual and earthly experiences. This means enjoying all that God has created without guilt or fear, knowing that their true identity is found in Christ and not in the material things of the world. When believers recognize their true identity, they are liberated to live in the glorious liberty of the sons of God, boldly, joyfully, and free from the lies of self-deprivation and legalistic religion.